Look at this. I got headphones on. I got a mic going. Baby.
If
Huh?
only people could see you now.
Hey, no video. We've gone through this before.
All right,
No
all right,
video.
all right. Welcome to This Commerce Life. This is a podcast aimed at small, medium entrepreneurs focused on commerce. I'm Phil, your host, and Kenny, your co-host, will join us as well. And we're going to talk to you about the world of retail and commerce and how things are changing in the world.
Yours. Oh my God. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah.
So nice to see you.
Well, you as well. I haven't seen you.
Right on.
You were
It's been a
supposed
very-
to do the me, you, and Bird lunch, remember? I think
I know.
COVID was just hitting, or
It was just hitting. It was just hitting because
Yeah.
what ended up happening was we had it planned. We talked about it, and then all of a sudden we decided.
I think I
that,
precipitated.
we weren't gonna do it.
Texted, guys, I don't know. Do you think it's a good idea?
Well, you were seeing your parents.
That's
That's
right.
what was happening. You were going to visit your parents, and yeah, it's just crazy, man. Like I've been talking to people about that recently, just because it's amazing how quickly things ended up happening, right? And
It's insane.
you know, at one moment you
Yeah.
don't think anything's going on, and then the next thing you know, like for us, it was like, oh, yeah, well, there's a concern. In fact, in January, my production manager, because COVID was kind of hitting in Iran and in China, he was like, this is going to be serious. And we were kind of making fun of him, but he was on it with like even getting supplies for producing hand sanitizer, and we had PPE anyway because we're a production facility and dealing with cosmetics and stuff, but he just started to load up on that stuff, and then it just got more and more serious. My mom one day came in and said, "You're not going to Expo West?" And I said, "Mom, it's like in 2 weeks. What are you talking about?"
No, Mom, I'm not staying home. You can forget it.
Yeah.
You don't know his mom.
Yeah, well, I work with my mom. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, you don't know his mom.
Okay.
If his mom says something, there's no.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
It's
Wow.
the law of.
Okay.
Well, and then she said, "Well, listen, I don't care. You're not going to go then." And we work with a guy, Gary, and Gary's like in his late 50s, maybe in his early 60s.
Early 60s, I think.
Yeah, early 60s. That's right. Yeah, you know Gary.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Well, Gary can't go and you can't go." And then I was like, "Well, I can't say, hey, you guys, I'm not going to Expo because of COVID. Gary's not going, but you guys go."
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, Mom, give me a minute. I'll talk to the team this afternoon and we'll get it sorted out." And I tell everybody, "Hey, you guys, we need to have a team meeting this afternoon about Expo." And meanwhile, I'm like in my computer working, and we've got this big shared office. And as I'm working, my mom walks by and she looks at everybody and goes, "Did he tell you?" And everybody's like, "Tell us what?" She's like, "We're not going to Expo."
This is so, before they canceled.
Yeah.
So Phil and I are terrible then. I was in New York. Then I went to Orlando to meet Phil for 4 or 5 days. This is just before they canceled.
No,
then I got home
totally.
and still went to Anaheim.
And I was actually surprised because I saw either a LinkedIn thing of yours and you were at a show, and I
Yeah.
thought,
Ooh.
that's weird. Yeah. And then the other thing that ended up happening was a really good friend of mine who also happens to be my dentist. He was at that dental conference, and then I went in to see him, and he was totally fine, and then he died 10 days later.
Yeah.
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 And it was
It's
like
insanity, eh?
Yeah,
It's insanity,
so-
but it happens
and
so
that-
fast.
Yeah, and then that really kind of clued things in for me.
Yeah.
We started to take things super seriously for work, and immediately we started to do a whole bunch of contingent planning,
Yeah.
which initially was, okay, let's pretend for a minute that we're not going to sell anything.
Yeah.
And then we started to kind of do a contingent plan of, okay, what's the minimum number of people we need on staff? How many people? What if we get COVID?
Yeah.
And then went through a whole bunch of different things like that. And even at one point we were like, I guess we can operate with like 8 people. And then almost immediately we gave everybody in production a 2-week paid holiday, but said, listen, this paid holiday means you're at home and you're going to be on call. So what that means is we're going to call you at any time, and we want like a physical home number. And if you're not at home, like effectively you've lost your job, because we're paying you to stay at home for 2 weeks. And then we just started to rotate with a skeleton crew so that we wouldn't have cross-contamination. And then oddly enough, got a call from the New York Times, this woman, Rachel Felder, and she was like, hey, listen, I'm doing an article on like COVID waxing and people doing personal care stuff instead of the salon. Have you noticed anything different? And I was like, yeah, our online numbers are going up a bit. Amazon's going up a bit, but like, you know, I don't know if it's gonna or not. And then her article broke in the New York Times. And then, dude, like in the last 12 weeks, we've done 6 months worth of volume. Easy. Like,
mental.
Like,
that's amazing.
We would be at this volume end of November. And it's like mid-July. So
insanity, eh?
So wait, hold that thread. I want you to continue, but sure. we're in. We should introduce you.
So about 5 or 6. See, this is how we operate.
It's okay. This is what happens.
5-6 minutes, and hey, you guys want to know who we're talking to?
Yeah, but on that hook, that's a great hook, right? Because now everyone's going, wait, who is this guy? Like, how did he sell all this stuff? So it's probably a good moment. So the voice you're hearing is Fardad. Fardad, how do you say your last name?
Moayeri is the proper way, but Moayeri. I also go with Moayeri. And my cousin always says, if people can say Fiona, they can say Moayeri.
Okay.
I don't know where the connection is.
I'm not too sure what the hell that meant.
Yeah.
I think you said Fiona, and now I've forgotten how to pronounce your last name again.
Yeah, okay. So the proper way to say the whole name is Fardad Moayeri, but everybody knows me as Fardad Moayeri.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So there you go. Yeah.
And you are the Chief Esthetics Officer at Parissa Labs.
Yes. And that's how I appear on LinkedIn. And I found out I'd always gone with that because I thought it was cute, funny, and everything. But apparently it causes a lot of problems because I also go as Executive Vice President and sometimes as janitor, frankly.
Well, you've pretty much been all of them all at the same time. So what's the difference?
Yeah. I think they all come in the same bucket, really. I don't know that. Yeah. So do you mind telling the audience? I'm reading a bit of your LinkedIn, but I think this would come really great from you. Maybe tell them a bit about Parissa and you know what.
Somehow it started, Fardad, more than like, you know, the whole thing of even your mom and all that stuff of coming over. It doesn't have to be 2 hours long, but I think it's just an interesting story. It's a cool story of people just starting again.
Yeah, I digress a lot, and so please keep me on track because once I get started to talking, I just
you're a great company between the three of us. This will be like 8 hours long. We'll have to do like parts of this, you know.
We'll do it over a 4-part series.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So I guess I'll start with it. It all starts with the Iranian Revolution. So my family's living in Iran. Everything's like amazing. My mom is working at the National Petrochemical Company in Iran. She's one of the top executives there. In fact, she's the first female graduate from the chemical engineering program at University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And she worked her way up through hard work and being a smart cookie at the National Petrochemical Company in Iran. We're living in Iran. Things are great. You know, people are a little bit grumpy about what's going on with the regime and how quickly things are changing. And before you know it, there's like a revolution happening. People are marching in the streets. And, you know, we're thinking to ourselves, well, you know what, let's see what happens. At school, you know, I'm being told, or we're being told, oh, hey, listen, if your family's drinking alcohol, you should report them, and all sorts of different things like this. I should say, the revolution happens, Islamic government comes into play, the
Mm-hmm.
revolutionary government comes into play, a whole bunch of crazy odd things start to happen. And then I come home one day and tell my sister, like, there was a rhyme that I learned in school that pretty much was like, look, if you don't wear hijab, you deserve a punch in the head, like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom had been told at her work by, one of the people who like delivered the tea in the office, that if she didn't put on her hijab, that he would report her or punch her in the face or something.
Wow.
And so my parents were like, this isn't going to be a cool place for our kids to grow up. And meanwhile, right around that same time, the Revolutionary Guard, or the committee members, came to our house and took my dad away and put him in prison for about a week. My mom didn't know where he was. My grandfather, through his contacts, finally managed to find him. And they'd thrown him in jail because at one point he was like a mayor and a chief of police, like 15 years before that or something.
Right.
So immediately he got, he left for Greece, which was one of the places where you didn't need visas to leave from Iran, because everywhere else quickly put a visa restriction on Iranians. And my dad had a very good friend, a very good Greek friend who we called Uncle Alkis. He ended up living with him while we then planned on leaving Iran. And so we pretty much left Iran, moved to Greece, and lived in Greece for about 2 years before immigrating to Canada. And the story of how we immigrated to Canada is a little bit interesting too, because we were living in Greece. We applied to get into Canada because both of my uncles were already in Canada, my mom's brothers. And they were already in Canada because they used to play tennis with Ken Taylor, who was the Canadian ambassador that rescued the hostages, the movie Argo and Armen and Tehran.
Yeah.
So they used to play tennis with him, and Ken Taylor had said, oh, hey, Iraj, Turaj, you know what, you guys, if you're looking to get out of here, Turaj, you're married to a Scots woman. I can get you, access into Canada, and Iraj, I can get you in because you're Turaj's brother, and let me know. And so they were like, oh man, totally.
Please.
We're down with going to Canada.
Yeah.
No shit.
And he was like, yeah. And you know where you need to go? Like, you need to go to Vancouver. And they're like, Vancouver? Like, where's that? Because like Canada, they knew Montreal, they knew Toronto, but not Vancouver.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah. My wife, she's from Vancouver. Like, Vancouver's like where it's going to be, it's going to be at. And it doesn't snow. Like he was like,
yeah,
it check. Yeah. So they came to Vancouver, and then we ended up joining him a number of years ago. But we first applied, got rejected, and this is just how life works out, right? You get rejected. My mom, who never takes no for an answer, is like, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. I'm like a chemical engineer. We all speak English. My brother's in there. Yeah. Like, why would we get rejected?
Yeah.
So she calls the Canadian embassy in Athens, and for whatever reason, I don't know, like the receptionist isn't there, something isn't going on. The ambassador ends up answering the phone. And my mom's like,
come on, man. What's going on here?
Yeah, like,
lay it down for me.
I'm not getting into Canada. Yeah. What's going on with my application? And the guy's like, that sounds weird. Let me look into it and give you a call back. So a couple days goes by, we get a call back from the ambassador. We get a meeting with the ambassador, and we get our stuff reviewed, and we come to Canada via Montreal. Via Madrid, Athens, Madrid. Spent a night in Madrid, saw flamenco dancers. Went into Montreal, got into Montreal airport. I was like so excited, bought like bubble yum, because like bubble yum was like a rare commodity in Iran. And I was so stoked because I was like, oh my God, the raisin flavor. Not realizing
Raisin.
Yeah. Raisin, grape, whatever.
Raisin.
Right.
Same.
Yeah, and I was so excited because I was like, bubble yum. Like, you don't get bubble yum. Like, there was something like, whatever, like.
Bubble yuck.
Yeah, bubble yucca in Iran.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So CPG story in Iran, gum is called Adams.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, Adams is Adams.
Yeah.
And it's from like Adam's gum, like whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's not actually the word for gum. They just translated Adams.
Yeah, Adams. It was like the only gum at the time.
The gum.
The gum.
Yeah, so it's like
Kleenex.
Yeah, like Kleenex, exactly.
That's amazing.
We call
the
Kleenex,
tissue.
Kleenex in Iran.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is like soap dishes called like Rika, and eye mascara is called Rimmel, like the brand Rimmel.
Really?
So, yeah. And the other one is popcorn is called Chosefil, which actually means elephant silent fart, but it's short. It's a translation of Chesterfields, which was the brand of popcorn in Iran.
So podcasts there then would be called the Kenny.
The Kenny.
Yeah, you guys are both comedians.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that we got to Canada in 1981. My mom was trying to find work as a chemical engineer. Economy was in the toilet.
Yeah.
Oil and gas in Alberta, totally male dominated.
Yeah.
Pulp and paper in Vancouver, totally male dominated. Just not interested in hiring women. Certainly not a new immigrant woman. And they're looking around for work. They had brought all the money that they had and put it in like a down payment for a home, gotten a mortgage at like 21%.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And then the market tanks and they lose all their equity, no job. My dad's like thinking, okay, I guess like
holy crap,
to try to find like a job as a taxi cab driver or something. And my mom goes to like a London Drugs and is like, man, this is crazy. Like all there is like this thing called Neat, this thing called Nair, and like this Lancome hot wax. Like there's no waxing products and none of this sugar-based hair removal product that I used to use in Iran. And that my dad and his sister had a salon where they like made this wax and waxed people. And so she's like, hey, maybe we should just try to like make this wax at home. And so they go out, they buy a bunch of like jars with whatever money they can pull together. They buy some sugar, we make it at home. They do like a print run at like, I want to say like it was like Hemlock Printers had like a print shop here or something. Like when there was printing in Vancouver, I guess, or like
Hemlock used to do it.
Yeah,
Hemlock did it for sure.
And then got some jars from like Richard's Packaging, and then just started to make this stuff at home. And my sister started to package it, watching Scooby-Doo and Happy Days. And then, and actually, there's another kind of interesting aspect to this too. There used to be actually a fabric manufacturing area, like Gastown was like the textile, and Yaletown were like textile and fashion or warehousing. And so there used to be Corette manufacturing, and now there's like Corette lofts in Gastown if you go. Yeah. And my dad and I used to go there and buy like muslin fabric that he would bring home, and he would cut with a knife into these strips that we would package with the cold wax made out of sugar.
Yeah. Okay.
And then my mom would take it from like store to store, kind of going, hey, this is what a wax is. This is how you use a wax.
Yeah.
And I think in the first 3 months or by the end of that winter, she'd sold something like $20,000 worth of wax. And she was
crazy.
She was like, I think there's something going on here. So then from there, we just would like go to the PNE. We would go to whatever community centers and like little trade
local
shows,
markets, all that. Yeah.
In-store demos, and just being like, this is what a wax is. And people would go like, ow, no, it's going to hurt. It's messy. It's difficult. And so that would just be like me kind of with my parents doing the end to end and really living, I would say, consumer packaged goods. And of course, like we were really lucky because back then you didn't need a UPC. You could start your business one store at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, all of this stuff is like really just good fortune, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't like that we were amazing at doing things. It's just, there wasn't any category management.
Don't discount your mom and noticing that there was an opportunity category there.
Yeah. No, totally.
The woman is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, she saw it and she did it.
Totally. And you know what? Like, it's just like,
if your mom could hear you.
Doing it. Yeah, no, doing it.
Absolutely. Timing's everything. You're right. But you still have to take advantage of it.
I mean, it's just everything happens. And like I said, you know, my grandpa, my mom's dad, who was an industrialist, like ice cube factories, sugar factories, like cotton factories. He's the guy who brought like cat's eyes to Iran, like major industrialist. He would always say, business and life are like backgammon. You know, there's skill, but there's luck too. Like those two things need to work together for you to win the game. You can't just do it by skill, and you can't just do it by luck. So he always talked about it in reference to it with backgammon. So, but certainly my parents' hard work was instrumental to this, but also things like, you know, there wasn't any central procurement, there was no UPCs, the regulatory framework was quite small. Stores would have local initiatives. We would do, people would give you chances in the stores. And so we just kind of built up the business store by store. And while my mom was doing this stuff, a woman named Julie Schnaub from France, who came to Vancouver via Quebec, and Jeremy, whose last name I don't remember, but like a South African guy. Julie and Jeremy were sales reps in BC. Julie met my mom. She was like, oh my God, waxing. Nobody waxes. I love waxing because I'm French and this is a great product. She was like, why don't we become your reps? She started to rep us. She was like, you need to meet this woman, Shirley Northup, who's a very good friend of mine. She's the cosmetic buyer at London Drugs. And we need to show her this product. So we went, or she went, made a presentation to Shirley Northup. Shirley Northup, who's also a very accomplished woman. Julie, very accomplished businesswoman also. See an opportunity, love my mom, see her as like a hungry, innovative, passionate person. And they're like, yeah, man, you know, London Drugs is going to get behind this. So we get into London Drugs and start to build the brand that way. And then and that's kind of how things started out, kind of.
When though, Fardad? When? Roughly?
Oh, this would have been, so we came to Canada in 1981, and I want to say by like probably 82, 83, we were with London Drugs.
Okay.
And then what we did really quickly was that we were packaging the product with this like 1970s Iranian box. And very quickly, as soon as we started to get distribution, my mom was like, we need to like step this up. It needs to look good. And I can't remember, probably like, you know, either Julie or Shirley had mentioned something along the lines of that too. And, you know, packaging being important. And my mom ended up doing some research and connected with this guy, James O'Mara, who is a professor at Emily Carr and quite an accomplished photographer. He just recently actually had a photo show, not recently, pre-COVID, where it had his life's work. And at the time, he would do some like branding and design on the side, and had branded and designed this coffee shop in West Vancouver called Milieu, that was like the hottest coffee shop ever. It was like before Starbucks, right? Like it was like high-end coffee and by the beach. And so people would go there, and my mom had gone to Milieu and thought like Milieu was like the shit. I don't know. Can I say that?
Oh yeah. It's a podcast.
Fardad,
how long we known each other?
Yeah, no, I didn't know what to do with the podcast. Yeah. So she's like, oh yeah, the Milieu is the shit. James O'Mara is like, I got to get in touch with James O'Mara. Reaches out to James O'Mara, and we get into like some packaging, and James does the photography. Photographs this girl, Christine Rumming, who is a model in Vancouver at the time, who's like 18, 19 years old, and does this packaging where the woman's figure, which we used in our old packaging also, wraps around the box. So when you put the box side by side together, the entire body you see on the
when
shelf.
You faced it, you could face a body.
Yeah. And that's cool. Where Ken comes in.
Super cool, man. Super cool.
And so then, the packaging stands out. It's amazing. Sidebar note on Christine Rumming, is the model. Something like 15 years later, her husband, she marries like a Texas oil man. Husband calls, says, listen, I'm like a wealthy Texas oil man. I don't want my wife on the box anymore. Actually, I do. I think she looks gorgeous, but she doesn't think so. Can we buy it out? And I'm like, dude, it's like who we are right now. No, you can't. And so to make a long story short, they end up divorcing a number of years later. She moves to Hawaii, marries some other dude. And then the dude like murders her and her daughter and everything. Yeah. Like crazy story, man. Like this is how, yeah. So crazy. Like one day I'm like reading the Province or something.
Fardad,
like,
you need to save some drama for everybody else. Like, dude, come on. You lived through a revolution. You ran away to Greece, and then you gotta hang out with murdered models. Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, no, it's crazy.
I didn't know that.
Look at Kenny could use some excitement. Could you send some drama?
I didn't know that. Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
Holy crap.
That's crazy.
I know. I'm like reading the Province one day, and it says like Vancouver model murdered in Hawaii with daughter. And I'm like, God, that sounds terrible. And I'm reading it, and it's like Christine Rumming. And I'm like, oh my God, that's
crazy.
The Persian model. And then so like we actually ended up rebranding that year. I don't know. I just
don't feel right.
Yeah. So, so going back a little bit, so there was the Persian cold wax, this one SKU. From there, Shirley Northrop was like, hey, you guys need to get some other SKUs in. Lancome is delisting their hot wax. Can you make this hot wax? My mom starts to fool around with some formulas, figures that we can kind of do that. We start to put that product into the market. Right around that time too, I don't know what's going on or how this kind of connection came through, but my mom's in France and she sees this one product, which is like a wax strip, and there's like wax between two strips. It's ready to go. She connects with the manufacturer in France, and we bring this technology to Canada, and we're the first people introducing wax strips in North America. And so now we've got nice packaging, we got some innovative products, things start to like really pick up. Certainly in BC and through London Drugs, we're a category leader. We get some minor distribution in the US with like Payless drugstores in the Northwest and Fred Meyer. But as we're going into the US market, we separate the brands and we create another one called Parissa because we don't want to go to the US with a name called Persian. So we've got our Persian cold wax, which still is the #1 cold wax in North America and is marketed under the brand Persian, and it has a couple of SKUs. And then we've got the Parissa brand, which is our global natural brand, and it's got about 12. Actually, it's got about 14 SKUs in total there. And we're like a leader in natural hair removal products. We've got the #1 organic wax globally, and we've got about a third of the market share in waxes in Canada. I don't know what our market share is in the US, because our distribution channels don't get captured by Nielsen there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's kind of like the quick and dirty, I guess it wasn't so quick, story about how we are here today. Yeah.
That was quick, amazing, right? That was quick for you, Fardad. That was pretty quick for you.
It was quick.
I think the first time I heard that story, it was over drinks. So, I mean, that was pretty quick.
Yeah. And then a couple of other things are around that too. I mean, obviously, both myself and my sister have been involved all of our lives from the time that like we were in elementary school and high school. Pretty much after university, I went to UBC. I did a year in the south of France in a Canadian-French university, and then applied to a school at a postgraduate program at George Washington University for environmental politics. And my pitch to them was that I've sold cosmetics and marketed cosmetics, and how hard could it be marketing politicians if you're marketing cosmetics. Got into the program, or actually got considered for the program, and that year things started to go quite well, and my parents were like, hey, listen, man, like why don't you just put that on hold for a little bit and get involved? And it was a little bit difficult at first, because all I could see in consumer packaged goods was consumption. And even though we had this heritage of natural products and coming from the West Coast, I just was like, it's all bullshit. You know, like we're selling false needs, and, you know, we're just putting waste into the waste stream, and this is a disaster. And I was like feeling pretty down about it. And two things happened that kind of totally did a huge paradigm shift for me. One was a total eco friend of mine was in Japan, and he was living in Japan, and he was like, dude, I'm like importing raw logs from BC and selling them as log homes in Japan. Like, at least you're making women smooth all over the world. Like there's a social good in that. And I was like, oh my God, like that's such a weird way of looking at it, but I guess so.
That's a way. That's awesome.
And then my dad was like, man, it's so crazy that you're thinking about this stuff in such a negative way. You know, like you're involved I was involved in 2 different NGOs at the time. And he was like, you're involved with these NGOs and you're constantly doing all this environmental work. Why don't you put your effort in the company in making things be much more, you know, environmental, like you call it? Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, you see waste, you see consumption. What I see we're feeding families, and those families are feeding us. I see a very intimate relationship. And I was like, oh man, yeah, like I guess you're right. And fortunately, right around that time, I ended up meeting people like Ken, like Mario, like Karen Lamb, like Jeannie Lee. I started to meet people in the industry who I was like, oh, you know what? There's actually, you know, decent people here. Whereas before then, nothing against Perry Fong. Like Perry Fong was a decent guy. He just wasn't my kind of guy. You know, he was like all business. He, or like Bill Hando, again, an awesome guy, but just really crude. And, you know, or, you know, you're talking to people in the way that they talk about women, or like, I don't know, racist jokes, or just things that like, you know, you're like,
it was
you're 20, right?
But it was so the time. And you were lucky because you hit Karen, and Karen was all things not that.
Exactly.
Right? Karen's just a wonderful person, and she was good-hearted. and she loved what you're doing, and she loved you and loved your mom. I mean, everybody loves your mom. But you know what I mean? Totally. It was different. It was much more family focused. And you learn that the industry's not that bad. There's a lot of good people out there.
And man, right? and full respect to London Drugs. I mean, London Drugs continues to support local brands. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's not easy being a small retailer. It's not easy being London Drugs. It's not easy giving small brands a chance. But if it wasn't for London Drugs, we would not be here today. You know, if it wasn't for people giving people a chance, we wouldn't be here today. And if it wasn't for us totally believing in the brand and really sticking to our guns and to our values, and really focusing on education. And really making personal connections with people, we wouldn't be here. And then the last thing that I would add, and I'm sorry that this is getting long, but all of those, all of those,
it's right there, yeah.
In-store demos, talking to customers, people calling, talking to customers that way, reading letters, now reading emails, reading people's social posts. You get an intimate feeling of what they want, and no focus group is going to tell you that stuff. Like I promote myself probably on LinkedIn and on Instagram and Facebook and stuff as like a category specialist, and really I'm a category specialist because I know this category through intuition by talking to people like crazy. And I call myself an accidental industrialist because things just kind of happened, like even things like EDI, like people get into things right now. They're like, oh my God, EDI. And I'm like, EDI happened while we were doing business. So it's not scary because it was scary like 30 years ago. Right?
So was the UPC.
Yeah. So was the UPC. Yeah, totally.
Whatever. I mean, but all the stuff you take for granted, it's a whatever.
Yeah. And so was things like, oh my God, you mean I have to put my ingredients and my formula on the box? And then it's like, listen, dummy, it's totally not about what's like the stuff is made of. It's how you go to market. It's how you sell it. It's how you package it. It's how you communicate it. Like it's the section of the store it goes in. Like it's the price point.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
It's all
stuff.
of it, right?
Yeah.
It's all
It's so like it always cracks me up when people are like people will call me like, oh, I got a great product. It's totally unique. There's nothing like it. And the first thing I'm like, okay, if there's nothing like it, where does it go in the store?
Yeah.
What are you doing then?
Yeah. And then my next thing is, okay, all right, when you figure out where it goes into the store, tell me what product has to come out. And people are like, what do you mean? And I was like, well it's not like there's empty shelves in the store. Like something has got to come out.
Do you just chuck it up and then it magically lands somewhere,
like for you to get in.
Yeah. There's a 1970s, the little clapper, right? So you just clap and it shows up on the shelf somewhere.
Yeah, but that's how people look at it. But it's a great product. Everybody will want it. Sure.
Yeah, and then
all right.
and that's what people say too. And I go again because I was like, I've gone through this, and it's like, man, you could have the greatest product in the world, and it could even be, demonstrable, and people can see it immediately work, like our product, hair, no hair, like immediate.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Like if it doesn't get scale, or if people don't buy it, or if people don't know about it, it's just not gonna sell. It's not gonna.
You're beginning to sound like Kenny. I don't know. It's like you guys are friends or something like that.
We've known each other way too long. So let me just pull this ahead a little bit. So I got your history because there was a reason I actually reached out to you. right? And not also because I love you, you know that. That's not the reason. What it was is that because Phil and I have been talking so much COVID over the last 4 or 5 months, and how fundamentally this has changed the work world, retail, online. Like this has had some in 4 months fundamentally rock the planet, right? You come from an industry of cosmetics, and it's an industry that's very tactile. People want to touch it, they want to try it, they want to feel it. Demos are critical. The trade shows, the component of a trade show, the trade show itself might not be, but a show or a consumer show where you can show people how to use this and all that stuff. Yeah, well, that world is ended. So like, how does Fardad and a family in the Parissa? Well, what do you do? Because you are you're a known brand. I get that, but not everybody knows it. Not everybody knows the category. Totally. How are you going to bring people in now?
Yeah, and actually, one of the things that differentiated us from, like, let's say, a Veet, Nair, Sally Hansen, Nads, or whatever, was that, like, we really, really made a huge effort of doing a ton of consumer shows and a ton of trade shows where, like, I would be like the resident brow wizard, or I would have 2 or 3 other people with me, and we would be doing brow waxing and upper lip waxing. Well, let's pretend that trade shows happen. Well, we can't obviously do brow waxing and upper lip waxing at that.
If the trade show happens, even, you're right.
Exactly,
if that happens.
So that's where, like, even what we're doing now, like Zoom video, for us, video and particularly through Instagram and social videos, really become huge. Like that's really the only way. And really, I can't even emphasize this enough, and I'm sure everybody talks about it or whatever, but you need to be doing a ton of outreach with users, whether they're your direct consumer, just your average consumer with maybe whatever, 50, 100. I mean, everybody's got 400 followers now. Like, I mean, on any platform.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I mean, even Ken's probably got 400. And he hates people.
Wow. That might have to be the last time I talked to either of you. You know that?
No, like, do you know what I mean? At one point, it used to be like you had to work for that, but now it's like suggested. Oh, why don't you connect with this? Why don't you connect with this? Exactly. Why don't you connect with this? Right? So, like, even that kind of stuff, the platform wants you to connect it and expand your network.
100%.
So the connecting thing. So everybody has got 400 or 500 people reach, right? So even your whatever user, you need to be reaching out to and connecting and showing love to and I don't want to say using their network in a nefarious way, like meaning like, you know, you need to connect with them because
you really do.
That's part of the game. Yeah. That is the game,
right?
Yeah, and everybody knows it, right? That's how we all connect with each other.
And from there to like influencers and small ones, medium ones, and even large ones. Although my experience with large ones, although the reach may be high, you may get some stuff. Yeah, there's a money aspect. And then, like, man, like, let me tell you what just happened that was like crazy, because so on the marketing side, okay, and this is to show how bad of a marketer I guess I am, or I oftentimes tell people, here's the type of stuff that drives me crazy. You know, you're marketing like crazy and you're trying all of these different things and you like put together amazing campaigns, or oh, this is going to happen, and then this is going to follow, and then this is going to follow, and these programs are going to run, and it's all going to be perfect and awesome. And there's like perfect execution, let's say, and you get like +10, +15, +20, like +50, and you're like, oh my God, I'm a superstar. I'm amazing, right? And then like you do the exact same thing with something even way better, and you're like -8, and you're like, what? Like, what the hell just happened?
That wasn't me at all.
like what? Like I thought I was a superstar. So you go from like being superstar to like being nobody to sometimes being superstar, sometimes not being a superstar, and like so the last couple of years, and like CPG in general has just been flat. It's just like, you know, you're getting like 2-3%, and it's like, oh, right on, like that's good growth or whatever, like 4%. And in our category too, it's just like duplication, SKU duplication, and you know, cutting back on space or the same stuff, or not very much excitement happening. So, you know, things have been kind of like fairly flat for the last couple of years. And this year, like we started things off and it's like -3, -4, and like it's 2 months in, and we're doing like a big refresh and reconceptualizing products. And I'm super excited about all of the stuff that we're doing, reaching out to influencers, doing social media, advertising, you know, really ramping up our website, doing all of the structural work that's required, SEO, generating a ton of content, doing all of the groundwork. And you know, we're starting to get a little bit of traction or whatever. And then like COVID hits, and like we're just like first week, you know, +5, second week +15, third week it's like +50, fourth week is like +85, fifth week is like +100, and like it's all of a sudden like +500, +700. Like it's just like all of a sudden 1 month we're selling more than we did all of the other like previous 6 months. Like by mid-April, like by April 15th, like those 15 days are the most we've ever sold in units in our entire history. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess the problem wasn't the category. The problem wasn't our brand. The problem was that I should have been going to the salon is unhygienic. Like you can catch a disease. Do it at home. Like you know what I mean? Like it's just like the issue wasn't demand. Like the demand is there. No,
demand was obviously there.
It was totally there. So I'll tell you how crazy the demand was, right? So like I said, everybody's working from home. I'm in the office. We've got like a skeleton crew producing. And so I'm like even fielding the calls, which is awesome because people are like calling from all over the world about waxing. And we used to get phone calls, but now it's like all social, but people are calling because like they're locked at home. And I get this call from this dude in Ottawa, and he's like, hey, hi, this is Barry Goldwater calling from Ottawa. And I'm like, hey, Barry, how are you doing? He's like, yeah, so I'm calling about your warm wax. You know, the missus, she normally goes to an agency to get her face done, you know, like gets her chin. She got some stubborn in her upper lip. But because of this COVID stuff, you know, the missus can't go to the agency anymore. So I got this product from you, you know, the Parissa warm wax. I'm going to be waxing the missus. And, you know, I'm a trades guy. You know, I deal with HVAC equipment. I'm real technical. I want to know what's the exact temperature it's got to get to. I figure, you know, I'm going to call out to you. And I need to know how, like, I want to wax the missus.
So great.
and he's like, I never thought like a 75-year-old man would be like waxing his missus, but here I am today. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy.
This is
like,
amazing.
This is amazing. So I'm like, I'm talking to Barry Goldwater, and then all of a sudden I hear like sirens in the background. I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's like, oh, excuse me, that's my daughter calling. And he's like, hey, Joanne, you're never gonna guess what's happening. I'm talking to a guy in Vancouver because I'm gonna learn how to wax your mom.
She's like, I'm hanging up now. I gotta go call and get some therapy. Like, I don't know.
It's either that, or I gotta get to dad. Dad's gone mental.
I don't know what's going on here. I'm hanging up now. I'm out.
So I'm like, this is what's happening, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so even a 75-year-old HVAC specialist will go out and buy my product that's natural, high-end, premium, design focused, and will want to learn how to wax if the communication and the circumstances are right.
Right.
Right. So
But there's something there, right? Like there's like, you know, with all this COVID stuff, I think the other thing that plays to your favor is, so, you know, one of the brands I work with is out of the US, and she's a nail brand, you know, and so indulgence has been something that has also been something, you know, like in the later stages of COVID, you know, that's been the messages. Look, like the first stages was about like, prepare yourself, you know, make sure you're okay to survive. You know, maybe that's being over dramatic, maybe it's not, right? But then the second half is like, look, you deserve some of this stuff. You're not going to get it somewhere else. How do you recreate some of that in your own house? You know, and right. I think like your brand lends itself to that, right? Because it's not a it's not a pedestrian brand. Like I've been looking at your branding and you know, kind of everything that you do. One, it's very clear. So if you're a first timer wax, you know, first time waxer, like our HVAC guy, right? Like it's not difficult to understand. And then the fact that you're very accessible, you know, takes all the barriers down, right?
Absolutely.
For something that, you know, otherwise would be quite daunting, to be honest, right? Like, you know, because otherwise the other vision you get is like the 40-year-old virgin movie, you know, where the poor guy, you know, like tearing away carpets.
So crazy. Like, we were just talking about this today because my, you know, that's just so cliche. And nobody ever talks about the pain of laser or all these other things. It's like so much around waxing. And today, one of the girls that I work with, like our customer care, communication, social media, marketing, we all work as a team group together, and everybody feeds each other. And she sent this video of this teen girl and her mom. The teen girl's got her own YouTube channel, and she's like, oh, today I'm going to wax using the Parissa brush tip or wax strips. We didn't reach out to her. She just had the products. And it was so cute. And it was the mom and the daughter waxing. And I was like, you know what's crazy? This is actually what's typical. This is the story you hear. Girlfriend, mom, daughter,
right?
Like waxing each other, rite of passage even. And it's always a very feel-good story. But the comedic or the thing that you're...
The stereotype,
the stereotype the trope, is just this,
And
it's so unfortunate. And we've been talking about this going back to how do you do it now with the usage and even on the communication. I just am like, video and social media is really where it is. And part of the reason I was bringing this up is one of them was that communication bit around, man, here's what a lame marketer I am. And here we are, you know, we do all of this stuff trying to move the needle, and then COVID hits and the needle moves like crazy. Here we are trying to connect with like influencers and the right people. And then all of a sudden, like what ends up happening is, you know, the weekend happens, and on Monday we've got like 300 online orders on Parissa.com. Like we used to get 60 orders a month on Parissa.com pre-COVID. It went to like 60 orders a week. And then all of a sudden on this weekend, we got like 300 orders on Monday, between like Friday and Monday. And we're like, what the hell happened? And it's all for the brow pen. And we're like searching.
Yeah, you're sold out now.
Yeah, and it's totally sold out everywhere. And then we find out that there's some girl, Rachel Hutchinson, on TikTok. And like before this, I'd heard of TikTok. I'd seen TikTok.
Yeah.
And like waxing is crazy on TikTok.
Yeah.
And this is what she does. This thing. I go to her like page or her feed, and it's got like 3 videos that are titled "Things You Bought on Amazon But You Never Thought You'd Need," and it's just her and her boyfriend essentially talking about a product. And you know, each one of her videos has got like, I don't know, between like 100,000 and 500,000 views.
Yeah.
And there's one with 5 million views, and I click on it,
Yeah.
And it's our product.
Yeah.
Cool
and dude, like
it's pretty wicked.
5 million views. Okay.
Yeah.
Like we did a campaign, like an advertising campaign through like Much Music, like 10 years ago or something. And we advertised on Sex and the City and paid so much money, like $2,000 every like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Right. And on reruns, like at weird times. And like 5 million views, like 5 million, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it and she's like, hey, hi, I'm Rachel. This is my boyfriend. And the boyfriend's like, hey. He's like, oh my God. And we bought this brow pen, and she shows it, uses it on his arm. He doesn't go, wow, ooh, whatever, right? Just uses it. And that's it. Like, it's a really uneventful video, but it's like hair, no hair. And she's like, I think it's awesome. I don't know why it got 5 million views. I don't know why anybody would tune into that. I don't know why anybody would tune into her feed.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I don't.
Well, you're not 14 and you're not 16 or 18 though, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Can't try to rationalize it.
So that video wiped out Amazon, which led everything to our website. And it was just like nuts, right? And so here was another thing is like, I'm like, I know about influencers. We've been doing influencer outreach. We even paid big money to a couple of different influencers who were okay. Like, the reach was high, and some people were like, oh yeah, that's cool. But like, here's somebody who doesn't show up on the radar at all if you're looking for influencers. And 5 million people see our product, and she drives 250 orders on our website over a weekend and sells out our product on Amazon.
Are you collecting, sorry, the marketer in me, I couldn't help but ask, but are you collecting emails like to notify people out of stocks?
Oh,
like that's totally. Such a wicked conversion, right? Like now totally. You like, come on in. Yeah. let me throw you all on the email list, right? Like,
yeah. So what we did, and I hired a guy who works with us like internally. This guy Peter Wong, he's amazing, and he's like an SEO whiz, and he just runs all of our like online stuff. Right. And essentially, what we did is we started with like essentially a basic Shopify system, but set up all of the structures and everything so that we could collect emails, so that anybody who would purchase, we would have like different campaigns and different, I want to say roadmaps, but that's not the right term for them. I don't know, I forget what they're called, but just different routes that people, different actions that they take, different messages that they get. And then also really trying to target the right people. Another thing that was crazy is that we found, we would do A/B testing on like our Facebook ads, on our Instagram posts. Yeah. And what was amazing was that the more raw the footage, the more real, the less polished the videos, the usage, the more we would get like real people using the product even incorrectly without amazing results, the more responsive it would be. So, which totally ties into the authenticity of the brand.
Keep it real.
And which we always have tried to do. And I think that, I think what is always kind of a nice little thing that we do is we're the design and the exterior and the image of the product is very, very polished. And so when people see that, they're surprised that it's natural or organic, because they're expecting like a craft box and for it to look like hippie. So we kind of work on that a little bit. It looks like a very big, large, international, multinational brand, but we really communicate with people on a personal level. And then we're really quite transparent. So like, to give you an idea, like it may be common for somebody to sometimes like maybe will attack and say, oh, hey, you say that you don't do any animal testing or that you're pro animals, but this product has got beeswax. And then we're like, well, the reason we use beeswax is that our alternatives are to beeswax is either paraffin wax, which is a petrochemical, or soy wax or vegetable waxes, which are usually GMO. So we've made the decision to use beeswax over a GMO wax or a petrochemical wax. And then then that negative turns into oh, cool. Okay. There's a reason why you did it. You're transparent about it. And okay. Yeah.
Well, I think the age group, so it's funny, right? Because I know about the Rachel Hutchinson thing, because I have a 14-year-old, and you're very right about the rite of passage, right? So Parissa strips are in our house, for my daughters, my wife. Yeah, it's funny because when I was getting on this, nobody in the house, the podcast is not a thing for them, right? They know I do it. They know they gotta try and be quiet or don't play Fortnite when I'm podcasting. But tonight I said, oh, I'm getting on with the guy who runs Parissa, and they're like, oh. And then my 14-year-old goes, wait a second, Parissa, like the Parissa, like the ones we have upstairs, like the box and I said, yeah. And like, she goes, like Rachel Hutchinson's pen? And I was like, yeah, that guy. And she was like, oh my God, right? Like,
who is Rachel Hutchinson? Like, we showed her love back, but I went.
No idea.
Yeah. Like, I feel like such an old man. I went on that TikTok thing.
I went on the line.
Yeah, oh my God, on the line. Yeah.
I went on the line. I couldn't find her on the internet.
Oh my God. Yeah. She's hilarious. So yeah, I'm used to her. I mean, I see her all the time, because that's the age group, so, but they're really tuned to, like, when I watch my 14-year-old, watching YouTube and things like that, she's programmed to skip over all the cosmetic stuff. So every cosmetic ad that you can think of, she already knows, like, those are not real.
Yeah.
She's not interested, and like, just watching her, I don't guide her. I don't kind of like, she just, like, right away, she just knows, like, that's not real, whatever, like,
they're different age group, right? They're wired better that way. They don't care about they don't care about the fakes. They don't want the fake stuff that our age group probably just lived on. They want the authenticity. They want the real. They want it to be cool.
Yeah. I think it's part of the whole YouTube thing too, is, like, YouTube started as something where shock value was a big deal, right? And then it moved from shock into authenticity. And then the more real you are, right, the quicker they tune to that, and then the quicker they gravitate towards you, right? So I think even the conversation about the pen, it really was like almost a non-event, right? Because she was just like, yeah, you use it like this. It's like this small thing. We bought it because we thought it might be cool, and now we're using it all the time. But it's like this small thing, but really a big thing, right? Like, if you think of like your home, for guys, I've got a razor, I've got an electric, brush, or I've got shaving cream and a razor. I can make do, like, I can use the same razor for a long time, like whatever, right? But that is something where it's like, look, I can't, if my wife can't go to the salon or whatever, it becomes a problem, right? Like, what do I do? Like, I got to keep up appearances. It makes me feel better. How the hell do I get this done now? And it's impossible, right? So, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. You've got an amazing story. This is like, holy crap.
I told you like this one.
Yeah, you know what, crap. Phil? I need to tell you too. Like the last podcast that I'd listened to, I just found some of the information that you guys talked about really, really informative, particularly around supply and stock allocation, because that's one of the things that we were finding too. Because we've been gaining share primarily because we've been able to supply. And just recently, I mean, like I said, in April, May, June, those 3 months, each month sold almost as much as like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, because suppliers weren't able to supply us with components, we weren't able to produce on a number of the items, or having to switch components or what have you. But we had to do this like crazy allocation where we were like, okay, there's these 6 retailers. These 6 retailers, each one of them is taking up this much of the historical business, and so here's the stock that we've got left until we can produce again. But man, I got to tell you, like today I got an order and they've ordered 1,180 cases and we're giving them 20.
Oh, that hurts.
Look, so
that hurts.
This is also like, you know,
of one product, man.
But this is also like,
what do you do, right?
You supply what you can, right? Like, you know,
anybody ordered 1,180.
Jesus.
But here's the thing: is like
product from us.
You know, sometimes like it's such a game too, right? Because on the retailer side, you know, having been through this before, you know, come on, man, I got data. So if I look at your last order and you ordered a quarter of that, what the hell are you doing, right? Like even if I could ship you that, if all of a sudden everything slows down, are you going to pick up the phone and call me back so you can send me back crap? Like that leaves me high and dry, right? Like as a manufacturer, right? So it's just
they will, yeah. Well, and what's been scary right now too is because this is why we're allocating it that way too, is because certainly 3 out of our top 5 retailers, you know, they're at a good in-stock position and they're ordering more than demand. And I'm sure it's to make sure.
Just competitive, right? Like they're trying to box somebody else out.
To make sure the other guys don't have it.
Yeah.
And to hedge a bet just in case.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? You can eat it.
And I think that there's some people in East Van trying to bump off of your internet there because you're cutting out a little bit.
Oh, was I cutting out?
Yeah.
Oh, Daniel's on Fortnite.
Yeah.
Chewing up all the bandwidth.
Yeah. You're like,
oh man, I know.
That's funny.
Oh man, I love this. This was so great. Thank you for coming on and doing this.
Yeah, man, really enjoyable.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. I love Ken and Phil. Like I said, retail feel.
You know, for listeners, we Fardad and I had a great time, and we were like, I met him over email, and like just over the exchanges, we'd already cut Kenny out of the conversation. We were cracking jokes amongst ourselves already, so I knew this was going to be like super.
It's all good.
Yeah,
all good.
Fardad, if people want to find you or the brand, where do they go to do that?
So Parissa.com is our homepage. On Instagram, I'm at Fardad M. I'm not super active on Twitter, but people can connect with me that way. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Parissa Wax has a Instagram at Parissa Wax, and Facebook, facebook.com/Parissa. So those are some places where they can check out the product for sure.
Yeah, and we'll put all of your contacts in the show notes as well. But
excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you back in the fall or kind of like closer to Christmas. Kind of hear how things are going.
Yeah, man. Anytime. And I know we didn't even really get into things about the pains of small business or owner operated businesses. Yeah, and even things around like transitioning business to direct to consumer. you know, and even product offerings for different sales channels.
Yeah.
The importance on selling on social media. How I actually, I'm seeing that as just pulling people out of their normal purchase habit. I mean, it happens to me. If it's happening to like a 40-year-old like me, or 50-year-old.
Excuse me?
God. 50-year-old.
Okay.
I don't know why I thought I was 40.
You don't have to age up for Kenny. It's okay.
Bullshit. That's he's aging
don't worry
up on
about
this
it.
one.
Like, you know, like if
He's
you're doing
50.
that because Kenny is
He's
50 and
50.
you want to kind of make him feel better, it's fine. But
I'm 50
I'll put
plus.
40 in
He's
the show
50.
notes. So that,
I just turned 50. Yeah.
He's 50. He's not getting away with that one.
Yeah.
No. You know what?
So
you said 40.
Next,
so I
next
put that
episode.
in the,
Oh, you're so full of shit. Next episode, we'll talk about some of those other things. I knew it'd be a good podcast because your story is interesting.
Yeah.
You're an awesome guy.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
I love having you on.
We really.
Plus, I won't get to see you otherwise. I don't think you're allowed out of the house yet to go for a drink.
No, I'm not allowed out of the house, man. We just came out with a whole bunch of new COVID protocols at work because numbers are going up again. And we starting next week, again, we're going back down to like, I think 25% of people at the office.
That's the way to do it. Keep them safe.
We're not going to take the risk.
Why bother?
It's just like, we were like, why should, like we got all hands on deck right now, but imagine if the person beside you who could be working remote is sick and now we got to have the whole office shut down and
no sense.
Wash down everything.
So not to prolong it, but it is a conversation I had today with somebody else because we had a conversation about that. They did have someone at work who went home, got diagnosed with COVID, has, cleared and wants to come back now. And they were like, oh, we're so excited to have this guy back. And I asked the question and it turned into like a 3-hour conversation because I just said to them, how do you know they're clear? Like, what are your protocols for clear? To which the business went, what do you mean? He said he's clear. And I was like, okay, but like, what's the protocol? Like, did you like, are you requiring a couple of tests? Do you need a letter? Like, what is it that clears them, that brings them back? Because if you bring him back, he says he's clear, but he's not clear. All of a sudden more people in the office get sick from him. You've got liabilities you got to worry about, right? Like, and so that turned into, like this, like.
Well, our conversation today was basically, and we actually had this conversation 2 weeks ago before we started to bring everybody back on board was, is it necessary? And we were like, yeah, you know what, it's important. And you're kind of into this thing about like, well, people want to connect, which is important and a bunch of things. But really, all of a sudden we went again that, look, if most of the people in the office don't need to be in the office, then why? So we, why are we doing that? We actually started in our production a second shift that has absolutely no cross-contamination with the first shift,
right?
Just in case somebody from one shift. Because we were like, that's the only way. We can't have, because initially we were like, oh, these people will rotate or this and the other. And it was like, rotation doesn't make a difference. They have to be different.
Yeah, exactly. You'll shut the place down.
Yeah. And we were like, man, we can't.
Better to lose a half hour, let people clear out, clean things out, and
you know what?
start
Honestly,
a fresh new shift.
Better take on a whole bunch of costs and erode your margins close to zero and be able to operate at a time when it's key that you're operating and employing, right? Like, and employing. Then get yourself into a situation where you didn't do that. But that's really, that's what's got me. I normally don't worry about a lot of stuff, but the thing that's got me worried right now is, what if one person gets sick? And also it's a family business. So like, I work with, my mom works, my sister works. Right now my kids are working. I live with my kids.
You don't need it, buddy.
That's freaky. Yeah.
Just do the way you're doing it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Anyway, take it easy, guys.
Much.
It was awesome.
Fardad, I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I love that, man. Talk to you guys later. You're doing a good job, by the way. Love the show.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
Ciao, bud. Okay, Phil. I think it's time for dinner.
Yeah, it's time for din. You got to go.
Well, not for you because it's 9:15.
I'm finished dinner. I'm good. Yeah.
So it's
go
good.
For a walk. That was really great.
Fardad's really great. Guy. He really is. He's an awesome guy. Dude.
Yeah. So interesting, and maybe we think about having him back a little bit sooner than later. Just because of all the other.
He's got so much other cool things to talk about, and because he's gone through it, literally. Well, you heard it from selling at basically fairs and garages practically to where they are now. That made me fascinating. But you had to hear his story. I mean, I just
you
can't. Is so cool.
You can't get the rest of it without that, right? So
So we'll do another podcast with him.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, my friend.
All right.
We'll chat with you later.
Yeah. Have a nice weekend. Ciao. All right. That's the end of this Commerce Life. We'll be back soon with the next episode. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Give us feedback. Tell us what you think. Subscribe, like us, join us, share us, tell your friends about us. And we hope to see you next time with more commerce news.